Kanika, Elmar, welcome. Can you tell us about your roles at 10x Genomics? And ladies first, Annika, can I ask you to go first?
Sure. I'm Kanika Gakkar and I work as a EMEA payroll lead within 10x Genomics. It's been almost 2.5 years that I work here and I'm taking care of EMEA payroll functions.
Great, thank you. Elmar.
Yeah, so I'm Elmar Ahmados. I'm a controller for 10x Genomics for the region, so for overseeing the finance for EMEA. I've been with the company for slightly over 5 years now. So
Wow.
based here in Leiden in the Netherlands.
In a beautiful office that I was fortunate to visit as well. So since you've been there for a long time, Elmar, can you tell us a little bit about 10x Genomics as a company, like its size, industry, the services and product you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So 10x Genomics is the life science technology company. So basically we produce and sell the instruments and consumables that and software, right, that analyze complex biological systems, right, in the field of genomics. Basically, the company is a global company, right? So we sell in and we exist in all three regions, right? AMR, APAC, and EMEA. So the company, I think, had slightly over 600 million in the revenue last year. And I mean, long term, we're still kind of in a growth mode. We have over, I guess, around, maybe Kanika would know better, but around 1,200 employees globally, plus minus at the moment. And this is, again, across all the three regions. Yeah, basically, this is shortly about the 10x.
Great, thank you. So yeah, you've already touched on a little bit on the employee side, and I think you're operating in the Americas, in Asia Pacific, and in EMEA. Can you tell us a little bit about how your payroll team is structured across the globe?
Yeah, so for me, I'm responsible for EMEA payroll functions, but globally we have a team of 5 people. They are responsible for US, and one person is responsible for APEC as well. And in EMEA, I would say we are doing payroll of approximately 135 employees across 9 different countries in EMEA.
Great. That comes with its own complexities, as we all very well know. And in terms of how you kind of deliver payroll, right? Do you do it in-house or do you have it outsourced?
So the payroll is mostly outsourced in different local service providers. It's not a one company, but we are outsourced to different LSPs.
Okay. So you have different local service providers in each of the countries that serve your needs the best. Great. And I think a company, especially like 10x, cannot operate without any systems, right? So can you maybe explain a bit your HCM, so human capital management, any other maybe HR systems, including maybe equity, and kind of the finance ERP that always interoperates with payroll as the aorta of all the employment-related data?
We use Oracle as our ERP system. And then for the HR system, we use the Workday at the moment. I think with obviously the payroll, we utilize Payzar. And I mean, at the moment, we don't have a full integration of those systems, right? But obviously, this is one of the areas and the plans that we have in the future. Perhaps we'll talk about it a bit more later. But basically, this is kind of the setup we have as of today.
Great, thank you. Well, that gives us a good picture of 10x as a company, your roles, and the scope and the kind of the system landscape. Let's maybe move into the situation before you implemented Payzar. So what were kind of the challenges that you were facing before you started the partnership with us?
We had several challenges, right, basically. So we had one provider that kind of we used, right? So basically we were bound to the agreement with the one same provider, right? And from very beginning, basically, we started to notice that, the quality kind of the service been ranging, right, across different countries, right? So basically, I mean, that was kind of one of those, I guess, inherent, I would say, I don't know, issues, right, that you normally have with those kind of setups. But basically, despite the fact that we were trying to raise those issues and have those addressed. And it didn't all the time kind of turn out to be like effective for us. And the other thing is like the systems, right, that we use with the previous payroll provider, right? We felt that they're a bit outdated as well. So basically the whole navigation process and, the process flow for uploading and getting the information without like providing much of the data capabilities, right? So it obviously caused quite a few challenges for us, right? And resulted in significant manual workload for our team, right? Whenever we needed to get some, data, and basically there was a lot of need for manual work, right? It was not readily available. So I think these were kind of some of the challenges that we've been facing, right? But basically I would say these are the key two, I would say, right?
I would add one more if.
Sure.
Yeah, we were a bit inflexible as well with the previous payroll provider. Like we were a bit long. We didn't had much opportunities to reach out or coordinate with our local service providers because the other previous provider had a central team, which was coordinating with our LSP. So it didn't allow us to have a good communication or good relationship with the service providers.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's of course something we hear often, right? At Pacer, if you have like a central provider with a central contract that has the idea of, you outsource everything, you don't have to worry about it because there's one contract, one central provider, but then the actual practices of it become inefficient because you didn't even have access to the local experts if you had a question. And I know you Kanika, as a EMEA payroll lead, you're reporting to finance. So obviously, GLs and that whole process is also a big part of it. Could you tell us a little bit the challenge that you had in the previous setup around that type of process?
So with Payzar, I have the opportunity to create payroll journals as well. Like it's a quick solution. Like I just need to click a button and I get a proper payroll journal, which we can easily upload in Oracle. We are still integrating that part. Like we are not there for all the countries, but we are still, we know that we are going to have a benefit from that. But with the previous provider, we were doing a lot of manual efforts in payroll accounting and reporting part, I would say.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying, so you got all kinds of local GL files or reports you had to manually manipulate, get it all together, group it into GL files, which of course took a lot of time, but maybe also raised the risk of inaccuracy. So after all, we're all humans, right?
That's right.
And I think you also had some challenges around reporting in general, right? If you had to report on a specific country or report a multi-country for stakeholders like HR. So could you tell a little bit of the limitations of that previous setup to adhere to those reporting requests?
Yeah, with the reporting request, I would say that whenever we had a request from management to provide a specific report, for example, ESPP deduction. So we had to go to each and every gross to net report to get the data. What did we deduct in the last few months?
Yeah.
They generally require data for last 6 months. So whenever the request come in, then we have to spend a few hours to prepare that report. But with Payzar, when we are uploading all the gross to net data in Payzar, we are able to upload all the data in gross to net in the payroll platform.
Thanks. Yeah, and you've already mentioned a couple of times you're partnering with us, which obviously also is visible because I have the Payzar logo here, but we're not there yet. So in terms of your challenges, you decided there needs to be a change, right? You wanted to make a change to make your life better, to improve your operations, more efficiency, more effectiveness. So could you tell us a little bit why you chose Payzar to solve those challenges in your global payroll for 10x?
Basically, I mean, yes, as you say, right? So after identifying those issues that we had, right? So basically, we already knew that we needed to find some solutions, right? And basically, we started to look, okay, what could be that, long-term solution that would kind of address those pain points, right, for us. And we started to look what's out there on the market for that, right? And basically, after doing some research, well, we found out that there are a lot of providers, obviously, but many of them kind of work on kind of those conventional basis, right? Whereby you kind of go ahead and you work with one a major provider, right? So basically, they could still have some network, right, in the countries. But basically, you go and lock yourself under one payroll provider, and this is basically was one of the things that we wanted to try to avoid if possible, because we wanted to be able to get this, flexibility and freedom of choice of the right partner for us, right? So basically, that was one of the pain points we had, and we tried to address. And that's why kind of this is where I guess Payzar particularly stood out, because obviously the solution that Payzar offered kind of allowed us with the setup where we could actually go ahead and find out, the partners that work for us the best in a given country. So really providing this like a long-term flexibility for really kind of, shaping our, let's say, payroll strategy as we go or as we grow, right? Basically, kind of that was the one of the main factors, I would say, right?
Great. So bring back flexibility and choice in your provider landscape instead of being locked in with what the industry calls kind of traditional aggregator, where there is a middleman in the middle. But that kind of addressed the flexibility of the service needs. But if you would go with just in-country providers, you would still have a challenge around different data, no centralized workflow. So you would have flexibility, but no standardization. So you also reviewed that part, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the other part, right? Basically, I mean, we could, of course, as you say, right, go ahead and, still set this up the system in a way, right, with different providers. But then I guess that by itself already comes with those like challenges where you don't have the same process, right? The processes are very distorted. You have multiple solutions and the tools. But we wanted obviously to enjoy the benefits of the both worlds, right?
Best of both worlds.
This is kind of exactly. So this is kind of where that again Payzar stood out, right? Because I mean, using one same platform, we still, as of today, even with the setup we have, whereby we have several partners, we still get the same process right in place. We use the one system. We have the standard process. The data comes in a homogeneous way. We have like a data analytics out of it. And I mean, as we grow as well, right? Or if we see that we need to, for any reason, change one of the payroll providers, we have this freedom as well. And I think we could also, I mean, benefit and enjoy those benefits where Payzar has the list of the partners, right? The network of the partners in different countries. So that was also helpful for us because basically that lets us to choose what fits best our needs at a given point of time.
Certainly. Well, thanks. So if you allow me to summarize, kind of you were looking for local flexibility with the best providers you could choose, right? And I think you've kept some of the local providers. We've helped you find new providers. We've helped you kind of onboard providers that solves kind of the flexibility and service quality issues that you mentioned. But then you're faced with, you still need to get all your data, your processes, and your workflows in one place, especially also for a listed company like 10x. You need to be audit ready, right? SOX compliant. So then you look kind of for a platform, and then you found us. And in terms of kind of our platform capabilities, what were kind of the key functionalities that you appreciated and led to making a decision to partner with us?
Again, right, for us, those were the main factors that I mentioned, right? Basically, in the longer term, also we obviously wanted to get some integration as much as possible, right? So we really were looking for efficiencies, right? Efficient tools, right? Reduction of the manual workload. So kind of that standard system already helped with this part, right? Whereby we could onboard the different parties and still work in the same environment. That also kind of, again, avoids or mitigates all these like issues across whereby you had to, alternatively work with the multiple systems, right? But basically from a governance and control standpoint as well, kind of having one set of the environment is obviously much kind of easier and more, easier to make it compliant, right? Under the SOX environment. And the integrations, right? So obviously one of the areas we wanted to make sure that the Workday data flows to Payzar, right? So where possible, we have those automations. This is still one of the areas we plan to kind of implement. We didn't have chance yet to get to that far, but even with the today's setup as compared to what we used to have, we already see a lot of efficiencies and eliminations of the manual time spent, right? That kind of previously we had to deal with.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that also kind of speaks to the modularity of the platform, right? Where you don't need to do everything at the same time. You've chosen the first kind of full reporting, GLs, and the workflows, and that allows you to plan for the next phase. Because all the payroll professionals out there in the world are always squeezed for time, right? Always a little bit under-resourced. The pressure of the next pay cycle is up there, so not everyone is ready to just clear their schedule for 6 months and work on an implementation. That kind of brings us to implementation, because I've just looked it up. We signed our contract on the 21st of November 2023, Elmar and Kanika. So it took us a long way up to now. And you've also kind of enjoyed the implementation. So let's maybe focus on that a bit. So can you kind of describe the implementation process and the overall experience you had with Payzar?
I mean, any change, right, with the payroll provider, I think normally you would know, Max, but it's not an easy one, right? Even like it's already kind of creates some anxiety whenever you think about it, right? Because it's a pretty massive change, especially if you go and change the whole thing, right? Again, what really worked pretty well with Payzar, I guess that, I mean, we were pretty flexible with this kind of implementation, right? Because we still had already some ideas in terms of which providers kind of work well for us. So we could work on the background with those providers, kind of, you know, secure the contracts with them, right? So basically for us, it kind of you know, solution on the switch to Payzar, or implementation of the Payzar came around the same time with the kind of renewals of our kind of main contract. So as with the payroll provider. So that was a good kind of time to reflect on what that model could look like for us as we go further, right? And basically, we started to look, right? So we started with a really, I mean, as with any other project as such, right? With a thorough planning, right? So what that implementation would look like. So how do we go about it, right? So basically, obviously, we get pretty good support from the Payzar team, because, I mean, they've been obviously going through many of those cycles already with multiple clients. So they had this like a valuable experience already, and they guide us through this process, right? But basically, this thorough planning helped a lot in terms of what that model gonna look like for us. So we had this in mind. So we kind of aligned it with the Payzar partners. Then we identify the key stakeholders here, right? Whether it's LSPs, the internally, and Payzar. So we got everybody on the table, and we basically started to work with each of the stakeholders and together just to, you know, kick this process off and just to move ahead with the implementation.
Yeah, we even had some periodic calls with the Payzar team that also helped us a lot throughout the implementation process. Like everyone bi-weekly calls helped us a lot to implement the payroll on time.
Exactly. And I remember, Elmar, we collaborated a lot about the planning of which country, which provider. I think I even personally stepped in a couple of times to speak with your local providers, because, you know, one of the questions we sometimes get with a model like ours is, how do you engage with the local service providers, and how do you get them on board? And I remember that was also a conversation we had before we even started the partnership, right? That was one of the worries. So it's good to hear that we've solved that together, and we don't just say to you, oh no, you figure out your relationship with the LSP. So it's good to hear that was also smooth. And I guess, Kanika, you were very much involved with our implementation team, who, by the way, love working with you in terms of getting the platform up and running, the requirements, the configuration. Can you tell us a little bit about that part of the implementation?
Yeah, first of all, it is a very user-friendly platform. Like it's easy to use. Even for the LSPs, we get enough support from Payzar. Like they helped us to reach out to LSP in a proper way with proper documentation. User-friendly platform helped LSPs to also integrate, and it was easy to use for them. So we didn't had any disruptions in our relationships. They were happy to use this platform because of the friendly.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, we initially may had few concerns from some of the partners. Obviously, that was something that we already expected as their initial reaction as it comes to any change, right? This is pretty natural.
Yeah.
But as we again go through that, and I mean the materials that we received, I think Payzar provided obviously the materials both to us internally, because for us it also was a new platform, right? We saw some demos. But later, I mean, we started obviously to look at it a bit closer, and it turned out to be indeed very intuitive, easy to use, right?
Yeah.
And with the proper guidance and the materials that we could actually share with the key stakeholders, it turned out to be a much easier and smoother process in fact, right, as it came to the realization of the project.
We managed to do a couple of test runs as well before we integrated properly.
Yeah.
So that also helped. Like we didn't have to do much. It was just for 2 months we did test runs, and then we had the confidence that we can go for it.
Exactly, yeah. And if you go back to kind of one of the challenges, and Elmar, you shared like what are the options out there, right? If you would move to another like central aggregator provider, it would have been much more disruptive. And what I hear from you is the implementation, and implementation is always challenging, but at least we limited the challenges, and I think we could face it in a smart way with you, that you could still pay people, still finish your accounts, file your reports, but gradually improve, right? So could you speak a little bit about how that experience was to pace it against the pace you could adapt to?
Yeah, so basically, again, right, so we already have the LSPs, right, the relationship with the LSPs, and we wanted obviously to preserve that worked pretty well for us. I mean, we had to obviously work with those parties and get them on contract and get them on board with the Payzar, right? And test runs were important, the communications were important, but also for few countries, we looked at some alternative partners, right? So we used this opportunity to check, okay, what could we get there that would work better for us, right? Whether it's like a quality aspect or a cost aspect or any other reason, right? Basically, again, we used, and thanks, Max, I think you helped a lot as well, because basically via those networks of the Payzar providers, I think we were able to actually talk to a few parties, right, in a couple of countries and make the decision in terms of which way to move forward with, right? And yeah, basically we were able to onboard these partners as well. And at the moment, again, we have that, hybrid payroll, if I may call it this way, right?
Yeah.
Whereby we use like a different partners in different countries. And obviously we have this standard process as well by the Payzar, right? And we think that, I think it's like if I think about this model, it's kind of, I could define it in a couple of terms, right? It's light, but it's robust at the same time, right? So it's kind of a bit, some may sound a bit counterintuitive, but this is how I feel about it, because it's easy kind of to plug in, right? A new partner as you grow, right? Or change. But at the same time, you have that overarching kind of environment, right? That works out on a solid basis, right? So this is kind of how it feels for me at the moment, to be honest, as I think about and feel about the Payzar.
That's great, because we are 1.5 years in the partnership, right? And there's always a cycle before we sign, and we do demos and we discuss, and then you actually start doing it. And of course, there might sometimes be things that are different in real life, but I'm happy to hear that you didn't come for any unpleasant surprises. Hey, and since we are like 1.5 years in, maybe let's move a little bit to kind of the results and the improvements you've seen so far. Maybe we'll make it very specific. Kanika, we spoke about kind of the post payroll process of getting data into the finance systems, right? If you would, across all those countries, for you, kind of say how much time you spent on that process before you implemented Payzar, and how much you spend now on that process.
It definitely decreased the manual efforts, which I was doing earlier, so we could save a lot of time there.
Yeah, maybe I could add a couple of things, right? I think maybe it might be slightly difficult to measure it, maybe because obviously we do not actively do it at this moment, but definitely areas where you have even like, let's say, ad hoc requests, right? Or you need some, information, let's say, in a readily available way, right? Because previously, as I say, right, so it was pretty manual, cumbersome process, right? So we had to go ahead and find the data in the different places, right? Get it on a manually, extract it, and then process it and bring it to the kind of level of the information that you could kind of use for any kind of decision making, right?
Yeah.
Here now with the reporting capabilities, again, despite the fact that you have different partners, right? The access to those information and again, the readily available format in a very homogeneous way is much faster, right? So basically it's there. That helps a lot, right? Obviously, it's difficult to translate it to the exact number because, as I say, this is more kind of as it concerns some, ad hoc requests or whatever, we need some particular information. But certainly in the longer run, it kind of brings to a lot of savings, right? I would say, in terms of the time spent on it.
That is also helpful, like when the company grows, maybe for example, it will definitely help us that we can provide a specific access to a particular team member. We can just avoid showing them the employee-wise details. We can generate a report for them, and with a click of button, they can have their data. We don't have to prepare manually, hiding employees or whatever.
Exactly. And I remember in our conversations about 1.5 years ago, Carnegie, you mentioned that, creating the GL files takes you 3 to 4 business days from approval. And now that is a click of the button for the countries that have that live, right? Which is a huge efficiency improvement. And it reduces kind of the risk of manual error. If you have spent 4 days manipulating all kinds of Excel spreadsheets, right? It's more than normal that something maybe happens. So it's good that you've now made those huge efficiency gains. So we talked a bit about kind of the data needs, but how has Payzar helped you kind of streamline and standardize the end-to-end payroll process itself? And has that led to any processing time savings?
There is that, like I guess the cost element here as well involved in this decision, but obviously you are talking more about the time spent, right? So time spent, obviously, again, with the Payzar as compared to the previous tool, obviously the process is much more streamlined. And what's important there, the other thing, we couldn't, I think, afford the same setup if we were to go with like any other, with the current at least setup, right? And the setup we choose to move ahead with, right? With the different parties. I don't think if we could, if we were to go there and work with the different providers, it would have likely came to the point that we had to utilize many different systems, right? Obviously, it's very difficult to compare, right? That's why kind of that kind of links back to the point that I made previously in terms of the decision, how we came and why we kind of decided to go ahead with Payzar, right? Because that was one of the issues that we are trying to solve here, right? And I mean, of course, any alternative to this model that we have today would have required significantly more amount of time, right? Whatever it is. So basically, both with the current setup, I think without Payzar, that would have been much more inefficient process if I think about it. But also with the previous solution we had in place as well, right? So basically, we could have improved it, the previous solution, but again, that would, as I say, that required pretty sizable kind of investments as well into the tool.
Yeah, what I like the most in Payzar is everything is at one central place. Like we have a place to keep all the documents. We have a place to keep all our conversations. We don't have to go back and forth by emails with our LSPs, which is sometimes difficult to keep a record for our payroll purposes, for audit purposes. So in case if anything changes, we can just chat with our LSPs through payroll platform. That definitely helps a lot,
So going from managing a payroll through an email inbox to a centralized platform, right? That already saves a lot of time. And I know one of your decisions was also to have more flexibility in direct contact with your LSPs to increase the speed. So can you speak a little bit on the kind of the flexibility and responsiveness gains compared to your previous setup where you had to first go through a central team who would then distribute it to a local team. The local team would come back to the central team, maybe sit on it for a day, come back to you.
Was the model we had previously. I think the other thing that really didn't work, and I mean, we had to pay, I mean, that came with a cost, but that setup did not work for us at all, right? So basically, having some intermediary in place that provided those like, whatever, right? Management costs, management services, or whatever it's called, coordination, right? It turned out that it just doesn't work for us at all, because often you just want to talk to the person that kind of handles the payroll just to ask very specific question. We didn't really have, we didn't see much of the benefit of having intermediary there, because all these people were essentially making it just a passing the messages between two parties. It really didn't help to the process, only extended the time. So basically, that was also one of the reasons we wanted kind of to have a lighter model, right? With a more direct context to the LSPs. And that's why also as part of this solution or decision, right, we wanted to actually be able to reach out to each of the partner directly, right? So definitely I mean, if we think about this aspect of it, that also, I think, brought pretty significant efficiencies in terms of the time spent on the whole payroll cycle, right? I mean, perhaps you could.
Yeah, we had a lot of delays with the central team in the middle, like they were going to the LSP with our concerns, and then LSPs were replying to the central team member. Sometimes we just had to skip some payroll inputs, which we never liked it. You know, we just want to do it, whatever we have in this month, we just want to finish it. We don't want to take it to the next month. But with this platform, we have the flexibility to reach out to LSP. We can just send them a message. We have it has the ability to send notifications, like the LSP or me, like for us as a user, we don't have to be online at the payroll platform. We can just set up some notification whenever someone sends a message. We get a notification for that. Draft payroll output is uploaded, we just get a notification. I just don't have to log into Payzer folder throughout the day.
Exactly. So where you maybe previously had to wait kind of 3 days to get a question answered, or maybe at best responded to, now you just get it instantly because you have direct contact, right? And it seems so trivial, but I've also been in your role, having contact to a person, how should I say this? Having direct access to a local person who actually answers your question is super valuable, because the payroll calendar is always free. So you need an answer now, and not what we call a glorified mailbox who sits on it, maybe translates it and sends it across. So I think that's something that might be overlooked by people, and the impact that it has on the payroll process. So hey, thanks so much. I think we're going to wrap it up with some questions around the future plans. I think you've already alluded to it a couple of times, but how do you kind of plan for leveraging the full capability of Payzer within 10x in the next year or years or so?
First of all, I mean, I think obviously, as you say, so it's been over a year now, right, since we've been using it, and it proved to be very useful, beneficial tool, right? So it definitely helped to address some of those pain points and issues that we identified previously, right? So this is already there, and I mean, we are grateful that we actually gotten to know about Payzer and we could actually use it. So with that kind of, I think we have that right setup that I think that is there for us, you know, to support our growth in the future, right? So as we shape our payroll strategy, we are much more flexible, and we have that freedom and the control, let's say, over kind of our destiny, right, for the payroll strategy as we move forward. And obviously, we spoke about some of those kind of implementations, right? We have some ideas, and I think we will want to bring it a step further, right? Maybe, Kanika, if you want to talk.
I'm really looking forward to implement HR Connect. That will also help us to do our input versus output check, which is one of the main thing which we do in our payroll, and also the comparison with previous months. So I really want to give a start to work on HR Connect part I don't have to prepare manual inputs and I don't have to do manual VLOOKUPs or things like that.
Exactly. Manual is a thing of the past for you guys, and it shows the modularity, right? Get the modules in place first that help address the key challenges, and now improve further as you get to know the platform as well. So maybe a final question to both of you, and maybe I'll invite you first, Elmar. So would you recommend Phase Out to anyone else? And if so, which we hope, why?
Definitely for, again, the companies that either seen like issues that we've been facing, right? Or those kind of looking for greater flexibility in terms of, just defining their strategy for the payroll as they grow, right? And then for those companies and for those businesses, I would certainly recommend Payzer.
Great, thank you.
Yes, it
Kanika.
has been proven to serve our long-term needs, basically offering value for money.
Great. Well, thanks.